can benefit from the forest. It's not a no-go area, okay, but you can go, you can use the resource there, make it available and benefit from that. So it's a combination of different tools that we hope hopefully will actually help us to have a healthier system in the area. Yes, I think it's a collaborative effort. We've been identifying solutions. We've been doing benchmarking with other countries, in the region, what they are doing. But it's really a realization that it's a very pristine ecosystem, a very vulnerable ecosystem, needs to be taken care properly. We have an opportunity to make history here because again, it's an ecosystem that benefits 3 countries. If you talk about the Cubango-Okavango basin, but there are many other rivers there that form basins that actually also contribute to the Zambezi basin. So we do have an opportunity to make the difference. And of course, looking at those different alternatives for financing, and I think that's something that Boholo mentioned, it's without the financing mechanisms, it's going to be very difficult to protect. So we need to find alternative ways of getting financing to be able to fund not only the research activities, but those alternative livelihoods, those activities that will help us to better protect. Of course, from an Angolan side, we will always say, as we contribute with 90% of the water to the area, it's really important that those services that are provided are also in a way paid. Okay, so finding an endowment fund or different alternatives that are actually being discussed by OCACOM to be able to have enough funds, enough expertise, enough people to be able to protect this important resource.
Thank you. I do not think that there's anything else I could add to what Vladi has said. We recognize this Okavango biodiversity, the ecosystem, as very important to not only the communities in the countries where the Okavango is, but being a very major contributor to carbon sinks and sequestration for the world. So I think in the way that we speak about the Congo Basin, we should have a similar conversation about the Okavango in itself, and the resources, the investments that go into every other area for protection should make their way to the Okavango. And I think that one reason why we do not have that money or investment flows into the communities going into the Okavango is because people haven't been. So my last word is to encourage all of you, visit the Okavango Delta. I will say from Botswana's side, but visit the Okavango Delta, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed, whether for scientific reasons or just for a holiday. It will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience, truly. Thanks, Ian.
That's wonderful. So there are lots of ways to learn more about this project and to support it if you're interested. The National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project is on our website. You can check it out there. We're always looking for new explorers from the community, not only in these 3 country regions, Angola, Namibia, and Botswana, but across the continent of Africa and the world. And those opportunities are in science, conservation, storytelling, and education. And finally, if you're going to be here next week, we hope to be screening a film, Quando, and have a discussion with Kerlin Costa, who is the country director for Angola for this project. And if you're not familiar with the film Quando, it tells the story of Elios, who is a young Angolan fisherman who is contending with his past as a child soldier in Angola's civil war. And he joins one of the transects, in this case an expedition down the Quando River. And through that experience, he gains a love of birds and a hope for the future of Angola and the ecosystem. So with that, please help me thank both of our panelists today. Thank you both very, very much. Rahul used to run to another engagement. Vladi and I will be around for a while, and we're happy to talk to you one-on-one.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Check mic 1. Check wireless mic. Check mic 1. Check. Check. Check wireless mic 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Kind of. Can you hear me now? Perfect. We're going to start shortly, so if everybody would like to take a seat. Wow, familiar faces coming into the room. I'm going to pop some of these around. For 5 minutes? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone to eat them. Okay, we're going to have to kick off, everybody, because we've got a jam-packed hour coming up. Today for us, we're jamming quite a lot of things in. This is going to be a celebration for us. It's also going to be a bit of an update. Louder? I reckon I'm just about at full capacity at the moment with my volume. We're also going to make quite a few announcements as well. But it means that we've got quite a few speakers. We've got about 7 announcements, so we'll be moving really quickly. I've got a couple of sons, and they're very fond of saying to me, "Come on, Mum, on the jog." They've got much longer legs than me, and it's constantly on the jog. And to get through this hour, we're all going to have to be on the jog. So wonderful speakers, please note. But for the rest of you to be able to keep up, we thought you'd probably need sugar. So we've brought arguably Australia's favourite biscuit. And this is not a paid announcement. If you're near a packet of Tim Tams, can you please open them and share them with the people around you? They're a bit noisy to open, but with the background noise that we're dealing with at the moment, I don't think it's going to matter. Do you want to run some up to the back? Thanks, Kat. All right, so my name is Sally Armitage and I lead media and communications at the Global Evergreening Alliance. And you find yourself in Restore Africa today, and very on point for this COP, we're turning words into action. But to start us off, there's a gentleman who a lot of you probably know, or at least know of, Dr. Dennis Garrity, former, is it Inspector General? Director General of ICRAF, and now the chair of our board. And he really wanted to welcome you all here today and give a few opening remarks. I think he's watching online as well. Hello, Dennis. So, without ado, Dr. Dennis Garrity.
Thanks, Sally, and thanks to all who are attending or listening in to this event today. I'll be celebrating a number of great new initiatives, which are fundamentally investments to support millions of smallholder farm families and their communities to restore trees and enhance vegetation on their lands across this great continent. Before we dig into the announcements, let's have a look at the big picture in which these massive efforts have a role to play. The Global Evergreening Alliance realized years ago that the world needs an audacious goal to inspire commitments and track restoration efforts everywhere. We mapped out 6 restoration target areas for agricultural lands, forest lands, and rangelands around the world. The targets all added up to a goal of drawing down from the atmosphere an additional 20 billion tons of CO2 annually by 2050. That became the aim of our Evergreening the Earth, Green Up to Cool Down campaign, launched at the United Nations 3 years ago. However, solutions that count must only be ones that also enhance biodiversity, enhance land care, and enhance the livelihoods of the millions of smallholder farm families who are engaged in the restoration process. The really good news is that there is actually a lot of momentum in ramping up the drawdown from positive land use change around the world. Here's the latest data from the Global Climate Project, on the amount of removals from the three major sources. Focus your attention on the orange bar. This is the amount of CO2 that is currently being absorbed every year by positive land use change. In other words, the amount of CO2 being captured through restoration globally. It's currently a whopping 10.6 billion tons of CO2 annually. That's a fifth of the total global emissions that is being reabsorbed by positive restoration already. Our ambitious 20 billion ton evergreening goal aims only to triple the current rate of restoration drawdown. We can do this. As an agronomist, I've spent my career identifying ways to better care for the land, particularly the working lands of the tropics. So what kind of practices have been identified that are sufficiently inexpensive and effective to be highly scalable? One of them is what we call evergreen agriculture, integrating trees into cropping systems to increase production and make cropping more resilient to drought and heat stress, such as the one you see here, incorporating lots of leguminous trees in crop fields in Africa, which is already being done by millions of farmers on their own farms. Well, I just gotta love UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He doesn't mince words in blasting our global leaders and government and industry about their failure to act faster. And on Sunday, he did it again. He reminded them that the planet is on a highway to climate hell with our foot on the accelerator. True, but you who have gathered here have your foot on another accelerator, a global restoration accelerator. Now, let's put the pedal to the metal on this one. And by doing so, we will help reverse our descent into climate hell while we also ensure that we evergreen the earth. Onwards, and thanks for listening.
Classic Dennis, and a timely reminder that we've all got a really big job to do. Now, I know we're all at COP27 and it's a mad, crazy time, but we'd just like to take you back 12 months to COP26 very quickly.
The Global Evergreening Alliance.
The Global Evergreening Alliance.
The Global Evergreening Alliance and Climate Asset Management has announced a new partnership.
Restore Africa.
Restore Africa. Restore Africa.
It's a community-led program.
This will help the livelihoods of 2 million farmers and restore 2 million hectares of farmland. My name is Karen Fawcett, Director of the Global Evergreening Alliance.
I would like to invite Irene Ojuk.
We're joined now by Irene Ojuk.
We want a fair return on investment for women who are really at the driving seat of, climate change issues.
I'm very pleased to say that we are stepping up.
"12 months ago at COP26. I'd now like to ask our CEO, Chris Armitage, to come up and explain what's different about this COP.
Thanks very much, Sally. So, as we know, COP27 is the African COP, and it's also a COP focused on implementation. During the past few days, we've heard dire warnings from leading climate scientists from around the world. To have any chance of avoiding a climate catastrophe, we have to act now, and we have to act together. We need to reduce our emissions, but we also need to rapidly draw down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through nature-based solutions. And that's exactly why we're here today. Last year, we announced a partnership with Climate Asset Management to deliver a $150 million nature-based carbon program. This year, we're here to say we've delivered. We've moved from pledges to real action and concrete results. And the Restore Africa program, which is Africa's largest ever farmer-led land restoration initiative, is now being implemented across East and Southern Africa. Climate Asset Management's investment will directly support more than 1.5 million households to restore more than 1.8 million hectares of degraded land across 6 countries, and all entirely funded by the private sector. But unlike most carbon programs, Restore Africa is designed first and foremost to maximize the human development and environmental outcomes, supporting farmers to adopt practices that increase the productivity, the reliability and the resilience of their farming systems, and supporting local value chain development and more equitable access to markets. In addition to these direct benefits, it provides participating communities with a reliable, long-term stream of revenue from the sale of at least 45% of all of the carbon credits that are generated from the program. Together with Climate Asset Management and other similarly progressive partners, we're moving away from the business as usual approach of short-term, fragmented and isolated initiatives. Instead, we're developing collaborative, long-term, landscape-scale programs that take a systems change approach. And this approach is replicable and scalable. I'll hand back to Sally. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. As an employee of the Global Evergreening Alliance, I'm so proud that, we stand up at COP26 and promise something, and then it starts and we're actually delivering. And a big reason for that is because we have climate asset management. I know everybody loves their investors, but we really, really love ours, particularly Caroline. I think a lot of that is because of her background in development. So we share the same hopes, and we also share the same ambitions for our people on the ground. So I'd like to ask Caroline up from Climate Asset Management so that she can take us through what happened over the last 12 months.
Thank you very much, Sally. Thank you, Chris. I'm standing here and I'm actually really delighted to talk about the Restore Africa program that was actually started, and the partnership was set up and announced actually at COP26 in Glasgow. And I think none of us would have expected what we've achieved actually over the past 12 months. We've made great progress. We had several workshops together with all the people involved, with the lead implementing partners, but also with the community representatives on the ground. And it also showcases that if you set your mind to it, you can really achieve a lot. To give you a bit of a background of who we are, so I work for Climate Asset Management together with Okay, I'll shout a bit more. So I'll work for Climate Asset Management, and we have, and you still can't hear? Wow.
What about this one? Better? That's still on?
Does it also work for this voice? Yeah, okay. I see a lot of thumbs up. My name is Caroline van Tilborg, and I work together with an experienced team at Climate Asset Management. And we invest in nature-based solutions and in nature at scale. And we ultimately really want to drive impact within the various landscapes we invest in. We aim to help actually clients that have a they have a carbon neutrality strategy. So we help them to meet that strategy through the delivery of carbon credits that come with big community benefits as well as with biodiversity benefits. So we call it the so-called high quality carbon credit. And what we do is we have an investment strategy that allows to invest upfront. So as soon as there's a feasibility study, we're able to invest in those projects. And that is exactly the strategy that we deployed for the Global Evergreening Alliance to get the Restore Africa program off the ground. So we invest upfront and we get a return in the form of carbon credits, which we subsequently deliver to the investors in our strategy that need those carbon credits for their decarbonization strategy. And climate asset management, we are a partnership between HSBC Asset Management and Pollination. So we are backed with knowledgeable and reputable organizations that help us to bring this strategy into action. And yeah, we're very pleased to continue working and partnering with the Global Evergreening Alliance. It has been a beautiful journey so far, and most likely a long journey to come, because we also invest for a period of 15 years. So over that period, we will continue to working on this amazing journey, and ultimately hoping that we can indeed restore 2 million hectares and actually affect 9 million households, because the program is really designed for them and with them. It is a true livelihood improvement program. So thank you very much, and I had to give it over to Sally for the rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Caroline. I mean, Caroline says it's been a beautiful journey, but it's also been a crazy journey as well. But we're glad that it's going to be continuing for quite a while. Now, I was going to say, when it comes to investing in really large-scale programs, it's a really, really bold step to take, to be the first cab off the rank and to step up and invest, which is what Climate Asset Management did. But it does mean that, you know, by investing and by showing what we've been able to achieve over the last year, it does kind of smooth the way for other people to come in and help and scale the program as well. So I wanted to read you something that was released this morning at 10 a.m. and it says, the Global Evergreening Alliance and Climate Impact Partners announced partnership to deliver up to $330 million US in community-led carbon removal programs across Africa and Asia. It's a massive commitment, and I'd like to invite Philip Mann up from Climate Impact Partners, but they really like each other, to tell us a bit more.
That's great, Sally. It's a huge pleasure to be here, it's a delight for me to represent Climate Impact Partners in welcoming this really exciting partnership. Can you hear me okay at the back? Can you hear me? Just about okay. You should be able to hear that. To welcome this really exciting partnership with the Global Evergreening Alliance and Climate Impact Partners. Now, for those that don't know, Climate Impact Partners has been at the forefront of the carbon markets for many years and has deep expertise. So we're really excited to use this deep expertise in partnership with the Global Evergreening Alliance and their outstanding track record of mobilizing NGO work on the ground for these really high quality projects at scale, working on nature-based solution projects and bringing these to fruition, delivering the substantial benefits for livelihoods, for nature by restoring degraded landscapes, and of course delivering high integrity carbon credits for our clients. Now, of course, carbon credits represent a really strong stream of finance for the types of great projects that the Global Evergreening Alliance is undertaking. And the partnership with the GEA will give us, Climate Impact Partners, access to a really unique stream of nature-based solution removal projects which our clients are crying out for. Now, let me be clear, there's really high demand for these types of high quality, high development value removal projects. So this is fabulous and exciting. And the partnership is real, it's about implementation. It's not just words, it's about action. And we're going to be getting going in 2023 in 6 countries in Africa and focusing on really high development quality, high impact nature projects. Through the partnership, we're looking forward to introducing the initial 6 countries to our clients, where, as I say, there is high demand for this type of projects. And Climate Impact Partners will deliver early stage finance. It's a similar model to the one we just heard about, and implement the highest quality projects, and will be responsible for the sale and retirement of all the carbon credits generated. And there will, of course, be an impact sharing with the development community, with the communities on the ground. And as well as the high demand with our corporate clients, for those of you that were at the Africa Carbon Markets Initiative launch yesterday, you would have heard there's very high-level political support in Africa for exactly these types of projects. We heard from the President of Kenya, the President of Malawi. This is exactly the sort of project that they want to see. So there's really strong demand on all sides. So we're really excited. We're very much looking forward to working in this partnership with the Global Evergreening Alliance in East and Southern Africa, bringing these substantial livelihood benefits to farmers, helping restore Africa in its mission to restore nature, and removing tens of millions of tons of carbon in the process. We hope and expect that that initial work in those 6 countries will just be the start of a long and fruitful journey with the Global Evergreening Alliance. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Phil. It's a huge commitment, and I'm sure we're going to do really great stuff. Now, we're going to have another ad break briefly. We held a forum in late June in Uganda, bringing together 14 countries. We'd just like to show you something from it.
Today, we've had all stakeholders commit to work with us over the next 4 months to deliver on this landmark restoration program.
I saw you dancing there, Gertrude. I'm going to call Chris back to explain what the outcome was of the forum.
Thanks very much, Sally. So the forum was attended by diverse representatives, including government focal points, as we heard, from 14 countries across East and Southern Africa. And by the end, everyone had agreed to come together to commit their efforts collaboratively to explore how we might develop a collaborative regional land restoration program based on the Restore Africa model. In the months that followed, we've undertaken a high-level analysis of land restoration potential in each country from a carbon removal program perspective. We've looked at the existing progress and relative success of existing initiatives. We've looked at the needs of communities and the potential of degraded landscapes, the existing capacity on the ground to support scaling up of effective land restoration practices, and the AFR 100 and land degradation neutrality targets and hotspots. We've also held a series of preliminary design workshops with government focal points, NGOs, technical and research organisations. And today I'd like to announce that together with governments and key stakeholders across the region, we've developed a concept note for a $1.25 billion land restoration program, which would directly support an estimated 10 million households to restore around 9.73 million hectares of degraded land and sequester about 370 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. This program would seek to deliver around 15% of the collective AFR 100 land restoration targets of the 14 participating countries. And it's important to note that this program is being designed in a way that maximizes benefits to participating communities and to the environment, but it's also designed in a way that's commercially investable. So the full design of this massive scale regional program will take an enormous collaborative effort in the months ahead, but we're anticipating that the program will be ready for investment towards the end of the third quarter in 2023. So I look forward to working with many of you in that process and to delivering this truly remarkable initiative. Thank you.
When Chris says it, it sounds as though it was easy. It wasn't easy. It's been a very big undertaking, so the results have been outstanding. I was wondering if Caroline could come back now to just walk us through opportunities for raising finance and blended, forgotten the other word.
Thank you, Sally. You've just heard the amazing ambition from Chris, because now we actually started in 6 countries. So we now start in Kenya. Is it still, can you hear me? No? Can you increase the sound a bit? Can you hear me now? Oh yeah, I see all kinds of nods. Okay. So what Chris was saying is that under the AFR 100 there's a massive ambition, because you need 1 billion funds in order to restore that part of Africa. And within climate asset management we now start in 6 countries, so that is Tanzania, Ethiopia, Zambia, and we're now really active in Kenya, Malawi and Uganda. But the AFR 100 has a larger span than those 6 countries. So in order to get that off the ground, additional funding is needed. So we're now really exploring in the co-creation process whether there are other types of financing that can be used in addition to the carbon financing, because it can easily be that the carbon financing cannot absorb all the cost. So we're now engaging discussions with people that want to give grant money in order to move the project towards the pre-feasibility stage. And then we're also having discussions with the World Bank and GEF to see whether they can then also come in. Because what you typically see is that, a project that needs to grow, so you have your early stages that will then be implemented and tested, and ultimately it will grow towards a more commercial stage. And the carbon credits obviously can help, but we also may need other kinds of financing in order to pull this massive ambition off the ground. So we here would also invite you to work with us on a co-creation process to see whether we can get the financing of these beautiful initiatives off the ground from A to Z. So thanks a lot, and you know where to find me if you want to discuss it further. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. There's probably lots of questions in the room. The plan is, if we can get through all of this quickly enough, we'll have a Q&A at the end. But if not, you'll be able to find everybody who spoke hanging around outside straight after. Now we've got another partnership to announce, and it looks like a perfect marriage. So I'd like to welcome Jack Hurd, the Executive Director of the Tropical Forest Alliance, representing 1T.org and the World Economic Forum. Thanks, Jack.
Great, thank you. Ooh, that's really loud. Wow. Sorry, I'll try to speak more softly. So thanks very much for the invitation to be here. My name is Jack Hurd. I'm the Executive Director of the Tropical Forest Alliance. I also co-lead the Nature-Based Solutions Group at the World Economic Forum. My co-lead of that group is Dr. Nicole Schwab, who leads the 1 Trillion Trees initiative of the World Economic Forum. And 1T.org is the forum's initiative really focused on getting a trillion trees into the ground for the protection, management, or restoration of forested landscapes by 2030. So this is an important initiative of the World Economic Forum. And we're sort of trying to do 3 things with this initiative, and this will come back directly to this point here. The first thing is we're trying to really mobilize private sector commitments to natural climate solutions in general, but more specifically into the restoration game. So those companies that have made big commitments around net zero and are looking to drive those commitments into restoration that has climate, environment, social, and economic benefits. So that's sort of one thing we're trying to do with this TrillionTrees.org. The second thing we're trying to do is support alliances that are building up in different parts of the world, in China, in India, in Amazon, in Mexico, in the United States, and the one that's most important for the people in this room is in the Sahel. So the idea of building and supporting alliances that are really going to be important in driving forward progress. And then the third thing is trying to find ways to recognize and connect entrepreneurs working in this space around restoration. So how do we help identify and support people who've got brilliant ideas and how to take those forward? And we use this through something we call an uplink challenge. Now, when we think about, so we've got these three methodologies we're trying to use under TrillionTrees.org. It's really important as it comes down to the work of the Global Evergreening Alliance, because we really are focused in on the Sahel. And, you know, obviously this is part of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. So we've got an arrangement that we formed now with the Global Evergreening Alliance where we're really trying to focus on number one and number two of those things that I've mentioned. How do we drive the ambition of private sector investors into restoration, and how do we support the alliance in the Sahel across the Great Green Wall? We as an organization are really focused on I mean, that's a big program, right? The Great Green Wall, as you all know better than I, is a great big program. We're really focused in on tree crops and the value chains associated with tree crops. The World Economic Forum is primarily about economic development, economic growth, that happens in a socially and environmentally responsible way. So we're really focused in on the value chain of tree crops as part of this. So we're really pleased to be working with the Global Evergreening Alliance on the Sahel as part of the Great Green Wall, raising the ambition of people who can invest into that, corporations who can invest into this, and we're going to be soon starting the process of co-designing an investment forum that I think is supposed to take place sometime in the Northern Hemisphere spring of 2023, probably in Nigeria. And again, that'll be a great opportunity to bring people in and sort of demonstrate where we can take this further, because obviously it is of utmost importance to the continent, but utmost important to the people of the world, which is all of us as well. So thank you very much for inviting us into this process. We're really looking forward to it going further. And sorry, last thing, my colleague Nicole will be here as of tomorrow, and I'm more than happy to try to connect anybody in this room with her if that's desirable. So thanks very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. It's sort of fortuitous. We were going to run our second forum with the next 17 countries kind of a couple of months ago, but we just couldn't pull it off. But it's turned out to be a great thing because now we've got new friends to run it with. Now we're going to turn our attention to West Africa and in particular Nigeria, and I'd like to welcome our good friend Mamadou Diakite from the AFR 100.
Thank you, Sally. Can you hear me? Other speaker, you speak like this. So, thank you, Sally. Thank you, Global Evergreening Alliance. My name is Mamadou Diakite, currently acting head of at the African Union Development Agency and manager of the AFR 100 program, Africa Forest Landscape Restoration Initiative. So currently we have 32 countries that have joined the AFR 100 initiative, aiming at restoring 128 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. And in all each region of Africa, we try to have the engine. And in West Africa, it's Nigeria for many reasons. And if we succeed in Nigeria, we will succeed in my country, Senegal, and in the whole West Africa. And Rokaya too from Mali is smiling. We will succeed in Mali also because we want to succeed in Mali. And with Global Evergreening Alliance, we were working since many years to bring restoration investment in West Africa, because if you check the map of Africa, maybe it's low-hanging fruits. Most of the investments are in the rainy areas where you get forest, where you get good forest coverage. Now our aim is to balance it and to bring investment in Sahel and Sahara region, along with the Great Green Wall. Also, we are working because it was set up by the African Union too. So we no longer talk about help or aid. Bring investment in whole Africa, in the Sahel region. You will see that despite being dry lands, most of the time there are a lot of rich biomes, rich landscapes to invest in the Sahel country. So let's start with Nigeria and make a big success. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mamadou. And leading on from this and making a start in Nigeria, I'd like to read you something else that was announced this morning. The Global Evergreening Alliance and ACORN, a Rabobank initiative, are developing a $12.5 million land restoration program for Nigeria. The program aims to directly support 120,000 small-scale farmers and to restore over 200,000 hectares by supporting their transition to sustainable agriculture. So I would like to invite Max Berkelmans to come up and provide a few more details.
Thanks, Sally. Can everyone hear me? I'm not really used to talk to microphones every day, but so thanks for having me on stage. I'm Max, working for ACORN, a Rabobank initiative that connects smallholder farmers to the international voluntary carbon market. And zooming out a bit, Rabobank obviously is a very large food and agricultural bank. Our mission is growing a better world together. And then obviously we should also focus on smaller farmers who are responsible for producing 70% of the world's food produce. And it's exactly what ACORN is aiming to do. I just mentioned that we aim to unlock the voluntary carbon markets for smaller farmers, and we do so not necessarily because we are a huge fan of carbon credits, but merely because of the high potential that international carbon markets have to channel large amounts of private capital into sustainability transitions such as agroforestry. And I don't want to have a very long promotional talk about ACORN, but I want to quickly mention three things. The first thing is that we have found a very scalable way of measuring and monitoring the carbon sequestration on the individual lands of smaller farmers using remote sensing technology. Second of all is that we transformed the way of certifying our credits by collaborating with the Plant Viva Foundation, by which we help our local partners in applying for the certification, and we also cover all the upfront costs up front. And these two aspects have really enabled us to channel 80% of the carbon proceeds back to the smaller farmers. And I think that's very important to mention, as we can talk about finance, we can talk about offsetting emissions, but the ones that are actually putting most effort into maintaining and planting the trees are the communities and the smallholder farmers itself. So that's why core to the ACORN proposition is that farmers receive 80% and that they also should benefit from price increases on the international voluntary carbon market. Specifically on the Nigerian opportunity, we're very honored and pleased to work with such an experienced partner as the Global Evergreening Alliance. Together with them, we're going to implement a project for, as Sally said, for 120,000 smallholder farmers in 6 states in Nigeria. And I really want to call out the work that our local implementation partners are doing, as we can provide all of the remote sensing technology and certification work, but the real work happens on the ground in training the farmers, making sure that they know which trees to plant. In this case, 37 Fiderbia trees per hectare for their nitrogen fixation benefits and also carbon sequestration benefits, of course. Training the farmers and making sure also the carbon maintains sequestered and focusing on all of the other side benefits of planting trees. So very grateful to be working, and I see this just as a start of a larger scale collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Max. we're looking forward to seeing what the future holds for us and Acorn and smallholder farmers. Meanwhile, in Kenya, in Baringo and Kitui County, there's another part of Restore Africa underway. That's thanks to an investment by Temasek, and I'd like to invite Peter Manang, the African Director for C4 ICRAF, up to tell us a little more.
Thanks, everyone. I'm very glad to be here. We've been working with GEA for a very long time. Oh. You want me to talk? Oh, can you hear me now? Okay, great. Thank you. I'm Peter Minang. I work for C4 ICRAF. And we've been working with GEA on the Restore Africa program for about 2 years now. And it's been a really good experience. And we got into this partly because in all of the things that the models that we've seen before, one of the things that we wanted to avoid is what I call green poverty. And green poverty is a situation where we restore and we get all the nice trees, everywhere is green, but the people are poor. That's what we didn't want, and that's what is different in this model. The model is very ambitious, it's at scale, but it also addresses development benefits. And for me, that's the most important part, and that's why ICRAF and C4 are involved in this initiative. And we provide technical advice, we provide technical expertise on things like trees and tree quality and measurement and carbon accounting parts of the story. So I'll just give you a simple example. It's not because you have a tree in a nursery that when you transplant that onto the field, it's going to grow at rates that are required to deliver the carbon that you need. When we've done surveys in many parts of Africa where AFR 100 operates, 60% of the time, the quality of the trees in the nursery are below standard. And that's the kind of approach that we're working on in supporting these projects. In Baringo and in Kitui, we are currently trying to deliver the first pilot in Restore Africa, where we're working with about now close to 15,000 farmers are being engaged in the program. We've got quite some program training, 50 training of trainers on the kinds of things that I'm talking about. 230 people in training of trainers in Baringo County, and looking at all of the baseline surveys that you need, looking at the quality of trees that are available, what are the conditions under which it can grow, would you plant trees that would get stunted from the nurseries and therefore not meet your carbon targets? Things like that, that's what we are looking at. And we are already working on that and working on value chains. And that's why I did like the intervention that talked about value chains, because that's the only way we are going to end poverty, green poverty. If we don't focus on viable tree planting, viable value chains in the carbon pursuit, then we'll end up with carbon, but we'll end up with poor people and nobody will grow those trees anymore over the 30 years that is required. So I think this is extremely important. We are making big strides in that, in Baringo, and all of these lessons are being turned into these programs in Restore Africa, from the Temasek experience with CAM, and the forthcoming programs. So we're really looking forward, and we are engaged and looking forward to how we bring these lessons and the experiences that we are having into the program rolling out at scale and ambitiously as well. Thank you.
We love ambition. And in Zambia, there's a fantastic program underway with Kamako, and that's thanks to Salesforce. So I'd like to invite John O'Niles up to tell us a little bit more.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? I'm John O'Niles, and I work with Salesforce, and it is amazing what's happening in this room. I mean, to hear what Chris and all the partners have put together, the 1T.org movement, climate impact partners, ICRAF. I've been coming to these for 20 years now, and maybe we dreamed that we would be at a moment where we'd be hearing these types of announcements, and we are just deeply honored to be able to partner with these amazing organizations and also the organizations that aren't here that are actually working on the ground to implement these things. But a little bit about us and why we got involved with the program in Zambia. At Salesforce, we really believe companies can be a positive force for nature. We are net zero residual emissions right now across scope 1, 2, and 3. Most of the offsets that we use to be net zero right now are very high quality nature-based solutions. We also think there's a very important role for pure philanthropy. We were lucky enough to hear about some of the early Restore Africa work. And given its very human-centered focus, which we've heard about a lot this morning, you're not going to have a successful program unless it starts with really making sure that the people in the forests, in the farms, in the fields are going to benefit. So we were very lucky to be able to come across this opportunity in Zambia. We also think that lots of new partnerships like this are happening all around the COP today and this year. So for me, this is a very optimistic side event. Thank you so much for letting us be a small partner in this.
Thank you, Jono. It was really encouraging. No matter how we develop programs, whether they're carbon or however the finance works, they're always designed with livelihoods at the center. And that goes for youth as well, and the opportunity for them to find employment and to stay with their communities and to add to what's happening. And we have an ambassador, Kaluki Matuku, who's particularly passionate about this, and I'd like to invite him up to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Sally, and hi everyone. I think it's an ambitious project, we'll all agree, right? And of course, the future of the world is in Africa and in Africa's youth. So I do see with all these big announcements and the talk about livelihoods being part of this and the transformation that comes with such a big program, then that means you can never forget the voice and the action of young people. And Africa, of course, has the world's youngest population. So how do we connect the power of the youth, the energies and innovations of young people in Africa to support these exact value chains that Minang and Chris are talking about? How do we connect together to ensure that even a simple project like tree nursery establishment becomes a transformative and economic activity for these youth to actually earn from the carbons generated, number one, from the sale and the growth of these trees? And how do we also engage in the innovation of young people to guide, in the face of the climate crisis and give ideas that will really help us to, leverage on technologies and also the creativity that comes with new knowledge of the 21st century to really ensure projects like Restore Africa can really see the light of the day. So I do see a big opportunity for us to collaborate and for the program to really leverage on the power of youth in the countries that we've just mentioned and more countries. We just talked about a new announcement now, so that means more opportunities for livelihoods. But these livelihoods can never be real if we are not working with young people. If we are not talking with them, we can't do everything we want, but we'll fail at the end because such a big population needs to be put right at the center of every restoration program that we have in Africa. So it's a great pleasure to hear about all these announcements, but I do hope, as well as these youth who are here, I think we all do hope that we find the ways to engage young people and we get to not just be on the menu, but we get to be the people eating the food on the menu with the rest of the leaders. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaleki. And also what we were talking about yesterday, connecting youth with elderly people as well, who are the holders of the knowledge. That's a link that I think is missing a lot in society today. Now I'd like to invite Irene Ojuk, wherever she is, yes, for closing remarks. So you can bring it home, Irene.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. At the Global Evergreening Alliance, ambition meets passion, and passion translates to action. And you can see from last year's COP, we have come to talk about what has already started on the ground. And I want to believe in this announcement next year and in any other COP that comes, we will come to report what is working. Restore Africa is not just about restoring landscapes. It's about restoring livelihoods. It's about restoring hope in this climate crisis. We are very keen to see that communities have hope to continue despite the challenges that we are facing. I would like to challenge the private sector, investors who are supporting this agenda, to move beyond just the carbon credits and see the value chain that provides opportunities for young people to participate in the monitoring. There's a lot of opportunities to what Kaluki just talked about, which we want to see the resources camped in Africa and that carbon credits work for the poor. Congratulations for being part of these announcements and be part of the alliance to see this action work on the ground. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Irene. And so that's it. Thank you, everybody. We really value your time. And I'd like you all to thank our speakers. I haven't got two hands. It was great. We'll see you around the COP.
I hope you don't mind. That's fine. She's very photogenic. I said you're looking very photogenic.
Land, forests, and water systems. So there are space for everyone who is willing to come and do land restoration in Africa. And this is what we are doing in this partnership with AUDA NEPAD, with WRI, the World Bank, FAO, the German government, and the Swedish government, and many other partners. So there are, we need actually, I always say, we need 7 AFR 100 initiatives to be able to address the challenges that we are facing. And when we talk land restoration, at least in Africa, it is not to plant trees or do action and fence it. When we talk about land restoration, we mean agriculture, we mean creating jobs, especially for young women and men, entrepreneurs, land entrepreneurs, and we have millions of them who are ready to take the challenge. Taking the challenge is also shifting the mentality of aid, help, assistance to investment. And I think this is what brings us here in this kind of gatherings, to see that, to show that Africa is ready for investment. We repeat it in all forums. We have moved from aid. We are calling for investors, in particular African investors. We know that there are billions circulating around in Africa. First, we need to show the example that Africans are investing in land restoration. When you invest in land restoration, you bring back agriculture, preferably sustainable agriculture. You also create jobs, and also you contribute to food security and food sovereignty in Africa. So land restoration for all those benefits bring the investments in. Thank you.
Congratulations for speaking briefly. Thank you very much, Mamadou. Next, I will ask Annie Dasgupta, the President and CEO of WRI, to also speak to us.
Hi, everyone. So, among all the different meetings you guys will go to, I've been to, I'm most excited about this one. And I'm very afraid, that's why I got this, I might forget what I'm supposed to say. Honestly am. This is what you're going to hear, people you're going to meet just now, the most exciting. This is the outside sign outside when you walked in, before you walked in security, it said implementation COP. This meeting is about what implementation looks like at scale. This is what it looks like. First of all, big hand to Mamadou. None of this would happen without tireless work from Mamadou. When we started this partnership with many people, including Mamadou and others, is to figure out how to do this at scale. I repeat, at scale. How to do this not in one pilot, as Mamadou said, not in one country, but to get the political mobilization going. 31 countries, 131 million hectares were pledged. So we did all that. Today, that was phase one, as Mamadou said. Today is the beginning of phase two. And what we share with you is what phase two would look like. And not only what phase two would look like, what climate action on the ground at scale should look like. So let me just share with you 3 points I have. When we started last year at COP, we said, okay, to get there, we need to have local actors, and you will meet 4 of them today. Absolutely brilliant people. And we had advertisement. I don't know when we did it, I don't remember. But 3,000 individuals and organizations applied within, I think, 2 weeks. Oh, you have it. From all these places. 3,200 people, I think, wanted to actually work and be part of this revolution. And we selected the top 100. We actually had a grant from BEF. Emily is here, you'll meet her in a minute. We had a grant of $20 million to actually get going and start this. So the 4 of the implementer you'll meet is the top 100 of that. And this is just a start. This is the kind of thing each one of them are doing that's behind me. I can't see behind me, but I hope you can see it. So that's the engine of this. Local actors working on the ground with a huge community of people, and how we learn that, how we multiply that. Second, money. Yesterday, at a high-level panel President Macron was chairing, Franny Luthier, who you also meet in a minute, actually announced a fund of $2 billion. Repeat, please remember, $2 billion that was leveraged with a $500 million investment by Arab Bank of Economic Development. And Franny will tell you how it became $2 billion in a few minutes. But remember, we've been talking about funds at scale for years. For years, this is $2 billion for investment on the ground on people you will meet in a few minutes. This is what implementation of climate action looks like at scale. Everywhere you hear adaptation, and you'll hear adaptation, a lot of things, this is what needs to happen, because everything that is adaptation is hyper-local. So how do we get millions of dollars that's needed for this revolution on the ground? So this is the second point. We were able to put this fund together thanks to all the work people have done. Then in addition to that, BEF put $50 million, thank you, Emily, from your personal funds. But this fund and the institution this fund will allow us to build to support these implementers have the right monitoring, so the money this bank and the BEF is putting, they can see the returns of the funds they're investing in a measurable way. The map you see behind me is the beginning of this monitoring process from step by step. The last point, even with $2 billion, this is not enough. This is scratching the surface. 65% of African land is degraded. 50% plus people in Africa depend on their relationship to land. If we get this done, 131 million hectares, we will actually impact lives of 240 million people. That is the scale of it. This is the beginning. Only reason I'm telling you this, join us. If you have money in the bank, put it in. If you know friends who have money in the bank, ask them to talk to us. From this, I just want to think next, you will actually meet 4 of the implementers. They're the best, cleverest people you will meet. I'm so excited for you. I'm sorry to be in between them and you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Annie. So we've had the amounts of money that have already been pledged, and we're hoping that we'll still get more funding for that. So far, out of the countries in Africa, 32 countries have already made their pledges. We have gone beyond the 100 million target that the president pledged in 2015. We are beyond 120,000 hectares. There is more that still needs to be done. We are moving on to phase 2, where we're looking at how best can we grow the investment for locally led solutions. So that's where the road hits the ground when the implementers will come in to talk to us. We're looking at what we need to do to build the capacity of these implementers. What is it that we need to do to bring more finance to the pledges for action to be done? How do we monitor and validate the hectares that we are claiming to have restored or the hectares that we're working on? And then what is it that needs to be done in terms of policy, institutional framework, to create an environment that allows more and more of us, both investors and implementers, to go forward and get to the goal that we have set. And indeed, thanks to Mamadou for your leadership. We're in phase 2. We don't know what phase 3 will bring, but we are here to bring the money together with the hectares for us to get to the goals. So let's bring the 4 champions in front. I'll start with Sam Kanyamibwa. He's the CEO of Abatine Rift Conservation Society from Rwanda. Join us in front. Let us have Lokiatu Traore, co-founder and CEO of Hero Alliance from Mali. Thank you very much. Next is Olabi Adeumi, founder and CEO of Aerobic Agroforestry Nigeria. And then lastly, let me invite Vahid Fatuhi, founder and CEO of Blue Forest Mangrove Restoration. Okay, so we will do with the 3 that are in front of us. Thank you very much for joining us today. I will ask you to briefly, very briefly, talk to us about your initiatives. Let's start with you.
Who can create a miracle in 3 months for the community and the planet? It's a question. Okay, that's what I was expecting. I also can't, but the moringa does. In 3 months, sorry. In 3 months, a moringa seed can grow and deliver a perennial and evergreen tree that can capture 20 times more carbon than a typical tree. In 3 months, a moringa seed can grow and give leaves that can have nutrients, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, capable to deliver 100 health benefits for children suffering with malnutrition, with young and adults fighting with diabetes, high blood pressure, and cholesterol. In 3 months, a moringa seed can grow and give leaves, seed, and flower that can be commercialized by small-scale farmers to increase their livelihoods. Hello everyone, my name is Rokia Tutraure. I am the founder and the executive director of Eru Alliance, a social enterprise that builds an inclusive moringa value chain in Mali, West Africa. When I discovered moringa in Turkey when I was doing my MBA, and I've seen all the good benefits for the environment and the animal, I've decided to actually implement it in Mali. But not only implement it, but create a whole value chain that will empower women and create economic, environmental, and social impacts in Mali. We create economic impact by working with small-scale farmers, mainly women and youth, by giving them technical assistance, climate-smart seed, and organic fertilizers to help them plant moringa with other trees and crops. We also create environmental impact by planting moringa all over the country. We create social impact by processing moringa leaves, seed, and flower into tea, powder, baby porridge, spice, oil, and soap to address malnutrition. So the processing is done in a small scale, in our small scale processing factory, fully funded by our own fund and grants at this extent. So with the support of international organizations such as Rutgers University, such as the French Agency of Development and Barca Fund, with whom we are currently raising investment, we've been able to empower 1,200 farmers, mostly women and youth. We've been able to plant 20,000 moringa trees and export our processed moringa products that we see here, the tea and the powder, in 8 countries, including France and Germany. Today, we need international fund more than ever. We need it in equity fund, we need it in loan with acceptable rates, we need also grants to be able to empower 15,000 women, plant 10 million moringa trees, and integrate the superfood moringa in the daily diet of every family in Africa, in Europe, and in America. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have money in the bank, give it to us. If you know friends who have money in the bank, give it to us and join us in creating a miracle in 3 months in Mali and in the whole Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very wonderful this afternoon. In fact, when I was coming here, I was saying, I am a man of action. I know these meetings, I'm going to lose my time. But I think that I really did a good decision to come. So my name is Sam Kanyamibwa. I am the CEO and founder of ARCOS. ARCOS is a regional organization. We are now today working with 30,000 households involved in restoration, and we cover now today 25,000 hectares of land in restoration. Now, when I go back, when I was doing my studies, I'm an ecologist. I did evolutionary ecology. And when I see where I come from in Rwanda, it is a country of 1,000 hills with a very high topography, affected by erosion, where degradation is very high, where people are getting poorer and poorer every year. I was scared to see what is the future hide for us. I did my career internationally. I worked with WWF as regional director for Africa, and I went back to my country in Rwanda to run the organization. In 2012, we got an international award for creative and effective institutions. But that time, landscape restoration was not yet there. And I was very privileged to be one of the people who followed closely as Mamadou was speaking, how the restoration in Africa is now in phase 2, I developed the Pan-African agenda on ecosystem restoration a few years ago in 2018. And when I went back, how my organization has been involved in this journey and how people are finding solutions in their daily lives. I feel younger. Even if you see I'm a bit old, I feel younger. And today I am even younger because I'm inspired to see what is going on around. But our approach, actually, when we say landscape restoration, I think we have to think twice. It's very complex. Restoration is restoring the functionality, is restoring the benefits, is restoring the inclusiveness. And that is very complex. This is why it is a process. So for us, we have approached it with 4 elements. 4 elements. B, E, S, T. B is the building grassroots community institutions. So we have to make sure that communities have the ownership, the understanding, and they partner in that process, building their decision-making process, management systems, decision-making, transparency, inclusiveness, very important, the letter B. Otherwise, you will not go far, particularly in the long term. And the restoration is long term. Secondly, environmental resilience. And this E is very important because most of the time, people will go very quick to gain the benefits and the environment will deteriorate even further. So you need to go really deep into the environmental functionality, diversity, including indigenous species in the tree planting, not just a tree planting. And the S, sustainable business. That is where we can become friends. Because you need really for communities to come to income generation, market, value addition. This is very, very critical in order to position the communities from just, working small bits, but at a higher level. Right now, we are involved with the European Union to develop a value chain analysis for all these communities, work with them, 30,000 communities. So we can actually find specialized products that we can engage in. That is under the letter S. The last letter is the letter T, is transformation. That is where you move from a few members, because all these communities, they are grouped into groups of 30 households. But you need to have a good transformation at large scale. If you are dealing with landscape, you need to work at a large scale. So to do that, we established revolving funds. Everybody's landscape can be beneficiary of the revolving fund, of a loan, then they can make income, but at the same time, they commit to do something on the environment. So that is a win-win solution. That is a win-win process we are involved in with the best process, which means that where we are now, we have a winning formula to engage communities to a long-term and a sustainable path. But to do more, we need more resources, and this is why we are celebrating today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then our last speaker on this panel.
Do you know why we are all here today? We all gather in the city because our environment is sick. Our environment is sick and we have the cure for it. The doctor is sitting in front of you today. I'm the doctor of trees. I plant trees because the tree is the cure for all the maladies and challenges we are facing in the world. My name is Adewumi Owolabi. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Aerobic Agroforestry Limited. We are based in Nigeria. where we produce seedlings of trees, and we also plant trees for climate change, timber production, and at the same time, improving livelihood. We work with our environment. We work with people in our environment to see that we try to mitigate the challenges that occurs as a result of our negligence in climate management. In Nigeria, what we are doing at the moment is that we have selected one of the degraded forest reserves in Ondo State. We are partnering with the state government in what we can call a public-private partnership to be able to revive, restore, and upgrade one of the degraded forest reserves. We have about 12,000 dedicated land for us to be able to do that. And we have been doing it in the last 3 years. So far, we have planted over 1 million trees, and we have been able to restore over 1,000 hectares of land. We are doing so much we concentrate so much on the indigenous trees. What I mean by that, those native trees that are already going into extinction, those are the ones we focus more on, and those are the ones we are planting. Beyond that, we also allow the youth, the jobless youth that are so many, and at the same time the women, the aged women, to use the space in between the trees that we have planted. You know that we must have prepared the land with no cost for them. All they need to do is to come in between the trees to do their annual crop production. They plant vegetables, arable crops, and with that, we are living together by complementing each other. They weed their vegetable land, they take care of their vegetable. Invariably also, they also take care of our trees. And with that, we are doing very well. And the market size for timber production in Nigeria is over $400 million US, and the carbon credit is about $40 million US. That's to tell you the opportunity that are in Nigeria for you to tap in if you join us. And I'm also happy to tell you that I'm one of the top entrepreneurs that benefited from Afri 100 in their first launch of this program. So I'm also looking ahead to be part of the beneficiary in this second round that they are going on, that they're about to launch today. What is our goal? Our goal is to be able to be one of the foremost agroforestry producer where multifaceted benefits are embedded to tackle climate change, food production, climate change situation, for us to be able to have a cleaner environment. And that is why I've just said earlier that I'm a doctor of environment. I'm a doctor of trees. I have the cure to be able to make our environment clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Vahid Fatoudi. You've joined us while they have already taken most of the time for this session. But tell us what you do and what's been your contribution.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late, and really grateful to World Resources Institute for inviting me. I'm with Blue Forests, and we focus on mangroves and mangrove conservation and restoration across Africa. And we're delighted to have had the opportunity to participate in Terra Match. We have just completed our mandate to plant 160,000 mangroves in Côte d'Ivoire. And this happened just last week. We worked very closely with a local planting partner called AgroMap, which is a young entrepreneurial forestry expert. And we work with them on developing the skills, in monitoring, in geomapping, and budgeting so that they could really up their skills and deliver at the standards that WRI, One Tree Planted, and their partners expect. And it's been a really wonderful experience so far to see the local partners implementing the projects, enhancing the capacities of the local communities, providing co-benefits such as fruit trees to improve livelihoods and to reduce the risks that these forests face by providing alternative livelihoods. Because you cannot solve the problem unless you tackle the root cause of deforestation. We're all here planting trees, and Sam, one of the experts, he will tell you from his experience in Rwanda, you must tackle the root cause, and particularly the anthropologic causes. And this is what we've had the fortune of doing, and really grateful, and we look forward to enhancing on what we've done so far with WRI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our speakers. You've really spoken for the other thousands that are out there making a contribution towards the achievement of the goal for Africa to restore. For the next panel that's coming, they've heard from you. Let's hope things can only get better from here. We've heard that it makes business sense to invest in forest landscape restoration. It is possible to make a living for communities from activities that fall around landscape restoration. Thank you very much, all of you, for making sure that as much as you are restoring the landscapes, you are also focusing on the multiple benefits that could be accrued for whatever you're doing. Thank you very much. Now, the team that brings the money, it's your turn. Let me call Franny, let me call Guido, let me call Caroline and Emily to the front. Thank you very much. I know all of you have experience with investing in landscape restoration, and you are all eager to support. You are all eager to support the work that we're doing to push forward the agenda for phase 2, the capacity building, the blended finance, the enabling environment, the monitoring and the validation. So we would like to also take a bit of time to hear from you. What is it that you have done so far? What is it that we can look forward to with your contribution as we move forward to implement phase 2? Let me start with Emily. You briefly tell us what you do in one sentence before you proceed.
Hi everyone, it's so nice to be here. My name is Emily Averna. I'm the Program Officer for Land Restoration at the Bezos Earth Fund and have been involved with the AFR 100 for about 5 years, so I'm really thrilled to engage in this new capacity. So at the Bezos Earth Fund, we are going in really big on restoration. We've earmarked $1 billion to support restoration globally by 2030. And we're starting in Africa, and we're doing this for a few reasons. One is because Africa is the place that has shown the rest of the world that large-scale restoration is even possible. You look at cases from Tigray in Ethiopia, from Maradi and Zinder in Niger. All the best examples we have are really rooted in this continent. And secondly, we're focusing on Africa because, as Mamadou said, Africa is ready. I mean, we've seen and now heard from 4 of the amazing businesses that are restoring land in their communities. They represent a pipeline of thousands of locally led businesses and community projects that are doing great work right now to restore land and boost livelihoods. And so for the Earth Fund, what we would like to do is really support the local implementation of African restoration. So last year we had the privilege of helping to fund the initial top 100 cohort, again, several of whom we've had the privilege of hearing from today. This year we've increased that investment and have just announced $50 million to support African restoration, support AFR 100, with an initial focus in 2 landscapes, one in the Rusizi Basin and the second in the Great Rift Valley, with an initial focus on Kenya. And what we would really like to do there is build this pipeline, understand the pipeline of shovel-ready projects and businesses, do a more effective job of intermediating finance to those businesses so that they can grow, and then also really bring in some world-class monitoring systems to help make sure that we can see the impact on the ground and use that as a basis to justify more funding from other funders, not only in philanthropy, but private investment and beyond. And I could just give a quick sense. When we look at this landscape perspective, our colleagues at WRI have put together kind of a dashboard that will help us paint a picture of what's going on more broadly in the landscape so that these projects are adding up to something bigger. And what I love about this dashboard, here you can see for the Great Rift Valley landscape, you have a sense of the number of projects that have applied for funding, the number that have received it, so we have a sense of where the gap is, but equally a sense of what the technical needs of the projects are and what kind of restoration they're doing. So we could start to group some of the projects into cohorts and have targeted capacity building, training, and monitoring to support them. The next part of the dashboard just gives a geographic sense of where the projects lie, again, so we can start to have some cohorts and some coherence and direct funding to where it's not yet going in the landscape. And finally, I love this feature. You can see all the detailed project information, so it gives a sense on what activities are being implemented, who's involved, the impact on the ground. And this level of transparency and accessibility is really helpful and important to funders like us because it makes the work that's happening real and tangible and really helps make the basis for more investment from other funders who we'd like to bring along with us. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Emily. I know, Flan, you have to leave. Speak to us briefly about new and emerging finance options that Africa can look forward to.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'm blown away by the 4 entrepreneurs who are here, just showing what is possible, and Mamadou for the work you've been doing over the years. We were very fortunate to be selected by the World Resources Institute to help think about how could you bring financing into this area. And so through that small grant we received from the WRI, we put our team together to think about it, and we came up with a very simple proposition, which is to say, if you take $1 from philanthropy and you transfer it directly to a community, you take $1 and you give $1. But if we were to do it differently, and you take those resources from philanthropy, concessional finance, and so on, and you go and tap into the liquidity in the market, you could go from $1 to $6 or sometimes more, depending on who your partner is who's going to the market with you. And that's how we ended up with the Arab Bank for Development to say, can we do this together? And by thinking about it that way, we're able to conceive of this approach where with between $300 and $500 million, you could raise $2 billion and then offer that as concessional or grant financing to communities, to SMEs, and entrepreneurs who are going to do the reforestation. And that's simply what it is. It's really not rocket science. And what I'm very excited about to say, and you heard from Emily who just announced the 50 million, we're very pleased that the Bezos Fund is an anchor investor into this activity because everybody is asking, how can that happen? And it happens because you have a philanthropist who has a vision and puts the money there. And then the last thing I'd want to say is we need more, we need faster, and we need more intensive restoration in order to achieve those goals. Africa is today the remaining continent in the world that has lungs, and the lungs have a few holes, but they're allowing the world to breathe. What we are doing through this program and all this work here now going to phase 2 is to fill those holes in the lungs so that the lungs are performing at peak performance, and not just for us in Africa, but for the whole world. And finally, I'd just like to say one thing. All this animation of community, and Sam, you said it very well. Rukita, you showed what one can do when you're there. Vahid, your example with the mangroves, just amazing. And then, of course, my brother from Nigeria, amazing stuff. How do you get more and more communities to do that? We have a very simple idea. Get what people like to do and link it to what they have to do. What do we like to do in Africa? Sports. So link sports to trees, and you are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fran, for your contribution. Keep the mic, Guido. It's your turn to give us an overview on the role of markets.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We are very, very pleased to be here. I represent Regeneration. It's a partnership between Palladium and Systemic. We have been running several facilities for the last years, so over the last six years, for example, Partnership for Forests, that invests in sustainable agroforestry practices. What we've learned there is something, and that's across 30 tropical countries, most of them in Africa. What we've learned is, Fanny, as you just outlined, we have been able to show that in places where people thought markets couldn't play a major role, you can put $1 of grant money and get $5 to $6 in additional financing leverage. That was the first generation. We've since been applying these lessons in West Africa with support from the German government, where we're now using returnable grants. And that increases the leverage even further. What we're very pleased about is the opportunity here, and huge thanks to Mamadou in particular for just working at record time to make this all possible, is to add to AFR 100 the market pillar. That will look at both the demand and the supply side. And we've seen here, these are all thriving, very promising business ideas. What we have, from our experience, seen is what a facility like AFR 100 can help do, and we would like to help drive that, is to, on one hand, provide support to the entrepreneurs, training, how to replicate these models, including the systems, the dashboards that you've just described. How can we, we've seen this work very, very well to scale up sustainable smallholder farming models. You start with one entrepreneur, he mobilizes 5 to 10 other farmers, he gets better, he mobilizes 20 to 30, and then he, and often it's a she, mobilizes many other entrepreneurs. And so that's the first part, the training. On the demand side, there is a question of how these products, sustainably harvested commodities, can come better into the markets. And those value chains often have breakages at the local level, and then also into the international level. We want to understand those breakages, those breakage points, and then tackle them together. And we're also seeing great potential for bringing international supply chain actors into AFR 100 who want to source sustainable commodities over the longer term. The other market dimensions, there is the opportunity to mobilize carbon finance that we also want to look at. And we're just really thrilled to play a modest role in what is a fantastic effort. Congratulations for phase 1. Phase 2 is going to be grand, and let's start dreaming about phase 3.
Thank you very much, Guido, for that. Now, Caroline, it's your turn. I'm told you have a new an exciting announcement to make. So it's your turn. It's good you're last.
Okay. Well, my name is Caroline van Tilburg, and I work for Climate Asset Management, which is a partnership between HSBC and Pollination. And I'm sorry to say I'm not announcing a new pledge over here. I want to do something different. As you may know, we are now working with the Global Evergreening Alliance on a $150 million Restore Africa program. So what we aim to do is actually to link the private markets through carbon finance with the communities on the ground in order to improve their livelihood. So Climate Asset Management is actually committed to finance in nature and in nature-based solutions, and we do that with and for communities, but we also look at biodiversity benefits. And our investment strategy is actually based on a feasibility study. We can finance upfront against the future flow of carbon credits, and once that has been repaid, we can also move towards a payment on delivery structure. What I can commit, and really, Mamadou, I'll love to support the whole AFR 100. I'm not going to give you a number. I'm going to give you a promise. We're here, but going to promise that, because that's the passion and the commitment we can make from Climate Asset Management, that we will continue to working in Africa to restore large landscapes and using capital finance that ultimately drips down to the communities as our way to put our words into action. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sure the implementers that were on the panel earlier have heard from you, the opportunities that are there. We need to show results. There has to be impact from the investment, as much as we said earlier on that it makes business sense, but there has to be visible impacts. People need to see results. We've also heard that there are several opportunities that are there for financing available for implementers of landscape restoration, including government finance, as you've mentioned, that should be made available for the 32 countries that have pledged and those that will continue to pledge as we move on to implement phase 2. Thank you very much for your contribution. I will allow you to take back the seats that you were sitting on. Thank you very much. Next, I will ask Bernadette. I'll give you 3 minutes because we did mention that we need to monitor, we need to validate what is happening. So in phase 2, we do need to get a clear picture of how far we've come in terms of the work that we are doing. So how do we do that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tango. Indeed, we need to make sure that, for instance, those trees that Vahid has completed to plant stay on the ground. So how do we do that? And I love some of the remarks that were made earlier because we are not monitoring for the sake of monitoring. We are monitoring to bring transparency, credibility to this work that is going on the ground, to really showcase the efforts of these local restoration champions so that they can tap into additional funding. And we are also monitoring to make sure that we can adjust. We are not going on this journey blind. It's a long-term journey. So we really need to make sure that we are staying on the right track. So for that to happen, we need quality data and we need them to be consistent across time to be able to check how much progress we are making. So really this slide is to summarize the type of innovations that we are also bringing to the restoration monitoring in the AFR 100 context. Really making sure that at the beginning we have a baseline showing where we are before the work starts. And we are doing that, trying different methodology from field measurement for using geotagged photos to trying with drone to using satellite imagery to see what's there. And as time goes along, we are also trying to balance between like technology and effectiveness, really to be cost efficient. We all know how much resources it takes to go on the ground, measure each tree, take a picture of each tree. So as you move along, it's actually possible to tap into, for instance, drone imagery between year 1 and year 2 to see how much trees are growing. That can save you time and it can save you resources. And over time, we are actually able to start identifying individual trees starting at year 3. This is a great innovation in remote sensing. We used to just be able to map dense forest, but now there are machine learning techniques that are allowing us to extract that individual trees in agricultural lands that Mamadou talked about at the beginning. We know that this is where restoration is happening, so we need to be able to accurately show where that work is happening. And really this is an example to show the type of monitoring and verification that is happening on the biophysical side. At the same time, we are gathering some information on the social economic impact on restoration on those communities that were mentioned earlier. So in a nutshell, that's what we are doing on monitoring, and we'll be happy to share more resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. Let's continue the conversations even after this session. Those that can hang around and reach out to whoever that has spoken to us today, let us do that, because we might not have an opportunity for questions. We are a bit out of time. Now, we've come to an end of the session. I will ask Mamadou to close with a few remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Tango. Thank you, everyone. This photo scared me because it was before COVID when I was running and a bit fit. Now I need to go back to this picture. Okay, one last word. The multiplier effect is taking place. When Rokayatu, when Annie said that bring your money, bring your investments. I can give one concrete example. Caroline, we met at the Global Evergreening Alliance in Uganda to launch, and she told me there is one big investor in the US who wants to come to Africa, but we need reliable and solid partnerships. And after less than 2 months, we are about to conclude a big investment portfolio for land restoration in Nigeria. So this is the multiplier effect from Caroline, I'm telling it in French, from Caroline climate asset management through Global Greening Alliance, making the linkage, and now we will be impactful again in Nigeria. And this is how we will work in all transparency, in monitoring what we do to remain credible, and so that when we get some negative publicity, we can show the evidence that we are doing. We are also ready to get negative comments, negative criticism, but with this community, with this collective, we can show that even if you have a bad apple or a bad thing somewhere, the overall movement is bigger than the two or three negative examples. So let's the multiplier effect takes place, and we bring 1 million young entrepreneurs into land restoration by 2030 in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mamadou, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today during this discussion. A special thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much for your contributions. Let's continue networking and see you next time. Thank you.